back with the 4th episode of our Ritual Beast Guide. And in this episode, we're going to be covering a lot of OTKs. Not necessarily all of them are specific ones, but just in general, things that help you OTK. So, at first I'm just going to go over some of the cards that promote your OTKs and how you can set them up. So, first card that's really good at starting an OTK, is Ritual Beast Ambush. If you can use this in your opponent's end phase and they don't have many monsters or any at all because you maybe had steeds and blew up their monsters, you're going to be able to get out 2 monsters from your Vanish Zone, and that's going to be extremely useful because you can now special summon them again on your turn as well as having special summoned on your opponent's turn. So that's going to allow you to get more searches off and maybe even use a search to add a normal summonable monster, and that can let you put on more damage on the board. Next card is Ritual Beast Apelio. So he's going to boost your guys' attacks by 500 or even 1,000 attack depending on how you use him. So he's really, really strong and makes your other monsters extremely strong as well. And something to note before we go away from Apelio, Ulti Apelio unfortunately will not gain the attack boost from Apelio. For those that didn't know, I think I might have covered this earlier, but this is important to remember when you're calculating the damage you're going to be doing. Because you need to think out these plays, obviously, because they're pretty in-depth plays. The next card that I want to cover that really makes OTKs is Ritual Beast Bond. So you can go into a fusion monster, attack with it, defuse, and then use this, and bring out your Ulti Gaia Apelio, who's going to swing for another 32, or even more if you have the boosted attack for the turn with Apelio effect. So these 3 cards are the main cards you're using when you're promoting your OTKs, and I'm going to get into some of the specifics of doing OTKs right now. So the first ones I'm going to cover are the ones that start on your opponent's end phase. And this is because the deck doesn't really have many great FTKs, if any at all. I don't know of a way you can FTK realistically. There's probably lots of ways with like tons of one-of cards, but nothing realistic. So on your opponent's end phase, if they have a relatively clear board, you're going to be able to use your Ambush. And in this situation, I'm just going to banish a few cards here. So we're going to have a Kanahawk banished, along with any Tamer besides Tamer Wen. So I'm going to put an Elder out there, because those 2 usually get banished together. And then I need a Tamer or a Beast, just one addition. So I'm going to put, let's put Petalfin out there, wherever it is. So in the end phase of your opponent's turn, you're going to activate this Ambush. And, is that in shot? Okay. We're going to activate the Ambush and bring out both Kanahawk and the Tamer. And now it's going to be your turn, and you'll get to use the effect of Kanahawk, and you'll banish an Apelio. And then you're going to go ahead and you'll go and banish these 2 to summon Ulti Kanahawk. With Ulti Kanahawk, you'll activate its first effect, targeting the Kanahawk and the additional one that you had at the start, not the Apelio, to be returned to the graveyard. You'll chain its second effect, bringing out the Tamer that you had out already and the Kanahawk. And then it'll send the additional one you had to the graveyard. And then you'll get to search. And since we have not used our normal summon, we're going to go ahead and take advantage of that and search for Wen. Now at this point, we're going to need to go ahead and summon Wen. And then we'll bring back Apelio in attack mode. That's very important. We're going to use the effect of Apelio to banish the Ritual Beast monster that we just put back to our graveyard. And it's important that you haven't summoned this turn. It makes the play better in case your opponent doesn't. You don't actually have the OTK. But we'll go ahead and use the effect of Kanahawk again. And if you banish the Beast with the Apelio effect, you're going to want to banish a Tamer you haven't summoned this turn. And vice versa if you banish the Tamer. And now we'll go ahead and summon the Ulti Kanahawk again. And with the Ulti Kanahawk, we're going to end up putting back the regular Kanahawk and bringing out the 2 new ones. And we'll get to search for Ritual Beast Bond. At this point, you can use the effect of whatever beast you brought out just to feel your your banish zone more. And I'm not going to because I don't know what my opponent would technically have in this situation. But we'll go ahead and summon out Ulti Apelio. So, now we have an Apelio who's used his effect once this turn. So all my monsters will gain 500. We have a Bonds in hand, and we have this board. So at this point, we're going to be able to attack for 23, 2,000, and 2,600. So that will total to 6,900. Then we'll be able to activate Ritual Beast's Bond, and we'll banish these two, and we'll go ahead and summon out an Ulti Apelio, which will have 3,700 attack. And at this point, you'll be able to attack for game, and if they have anything to stop this summon, which they probably would have used by now, you can go ahead and negate that. So, 3,700 on top of 6,900, that's going to be a lot over game. That's 10,600 damage. And you'll be able to do this through a board with only one monster of 2,500 attack or less. That's because that's what Ulti Apelio can run over, and then any damage he does is just extra. So this is one of the more powerful OTKs. It's one that doesn't require too much setup, honestly. It doesn't allow for much room for error if your opponent has responses, but as do a lot of OTKs, there's not much. They're kind of glass cannons. Either you mess up and you're now in a bad situation. But that's the problem when you're going for OTKs. But now I'm going to go into some of the reasons why this deck can OTK so well. So when you have a ton of setup, you have tons of things banished, the thing you can do is you can OTK without even starting out trying to OTK. If you're going for your searches with your Kanahawk, you can keep adding things like Steeds and Ambush until you get down to your last search, maybe, and then you can decide, should I go for Bond here, and if I do, will I still be in a situation where I can come back if they have a response? So if they do have something like the Mirror Force. But then you'll still be in a great situation if you had tons banished at first, because you'll still probably have 2 Steeds and an Ambush at least. And I don't know how you set this up because this is hypothetical, but you could still also have the ability to search for another normal summon, and there's just a lot of room if you get more banished. So this first one I showed you was only with 1 banished, and that's why it was kind of fragile. But as you can see, when we get more banished, and we'll be able to search for multiple things instead of just those only 2 searches that I got, which made the OTK possible, there's going to be some room for error if they have those cards that can stop it. Here's another simple OTK the deck has. This one is quite funny because it requires so few cards, but it also revolves around the end phase ambush. And for this situation, you're going to need a banished Wen, and you're going to need a banished Apelio, and then 1 additional Ritual Beast card in your graveyard besides the ambush that will go there. So in this case, I'll just put a Rampingu in my graveyard, kind of off to the side. So you go ahead and activate the ambush on your opponent's end phase if they have a clear board. You'll special out both the Apelio and the Wen. And in your hand, you're going to also need the Apelio. I forgot to mention that, my bad. And it becomes your turn. You go ahead, activate the effect of Apelio, banishing the Ritual Beast Ambush. Normal summon your other Apelio. Activate its effect to banish Rampingu or whatever one you already have in your graveyard. Change all of these guys to attack. And then you'll go ahead and attack for 2,500, 2,800, 2,800 for 8,300 damage. And I just love this one because it happens sometimes out of the blue when you're low on cards along with your opponent because you've been grinding for a while maybe, and then you just, all of a sudden, you draw the Apelio when you have the ambush, and you can do this. Really great. It's unexpected. It throws your opponent off and obviously wins the game quite frequently. So that's just another one I thought I'd throw in. And I think that's about it. I know there are more situations you can OTK, obviously, but I showed you the basics of what you need to look out for when you're OTKing. I showed you the minimal ones, and obviously if you have more banished, than you have for the minimal ones, you're going to be able to OTK. So I don't feel it necessary to go through all the situations, like when I have specifically this, and this banished. But if you're getting the ideas of the deck by now, or you should be by this video probably, I'll just go ahead and go through them again. You always want to use the effects of Beast to fill up your Banish Zone and replenish, because once you run out of cards you can special summon in a turn, you run out of steam, and you don't want to run out of steam too quickly. So each time I bring out the Kanahawk, I'm going to want to use this effect to replenish my Banish Zone with new cards I can special summon, for more searching, for more potentials to get rid of my opponent's card so I can maybe go in and attack, then in the battle phase activate Bonds and put in tons of pressure, if not kill them. So that's kind of the playstyle of the deck. Not always is an OTK, but it's just grinding until you wear down your opponent, and then you can do really ridiculous plays with the Bond or with the end phase ambush. So that's about all I have for you guys, and thank you all for watching, and see you guys later.